Do you ever get the feminine urge to just run around the woods in a completely unnecessary, magical fairy princess dress? No? Well then why are you here? Well, this week I want to make one such dress. So early last year I thrifted these curtain panels. They are sheer, they have this lovely embroidery on them. If you'll recall, they were quite crusty. I'm gonna say that that's oatmeal dried on there. I didn't really inspect these much before buying them. So I did wash these in the washing machine on gentle. Unfortunately, that still made the embroidery fray quite a bit, but ultimately the goal is for this to be more of a costume, something that I can run around the woods in, where there are in fact many a stray tree branch and briar patches that will probably be tearing at the embroidery anyway, so I think it's fine. For my lining, I think I'm gonna use this fabric that I also thrifted. I have no idea what the content of said fabric is, but I tested these panels against a couple different white and cream fabrics that I have, and this looked the best underneath of it. And then for my design, I actually drew up this design last spring and I've been sitting on this for quite a while. It actually looks different than I remembered. The design that I remembered in my brain looked a little bit more similar to this pattern. Yeah, for some reason I thought that I incorporated that type of bodice into it. So maybe I won't be using that pattern. I should not have thrown that. So I'm kind of going back and forth on what I want to do with the sleeve. I do really like this kind of bishop sleeve that I have drawn here, this like slight poof where it's gathered with a narrow cuff, but I might change it to be something just fitted all along the top of the arm and then opening up into a big flare. I think that would be really, really pretty. I'm not sure. So let's go through my patterns and see what else I have that will achieve this look. So the long, full gathered skirt, that's pretty straightforward, honestly. You really don't need a pattern for that once you've made something like that a few times. It's just a lot of rectangles or trapezoids. So if I want to do the full sleeve gathered in a cuff, I probably want to use this one. Or if I want to do a more narrow sleeve and open it up into a bell at the bottom, I guess I could use one of these two. This one looks more gathered at the bottom. Yeah, there's construction going on back there. This one looks like more of a slim fit, so I might use this for the sleeve if I decide to go with the fitted sleeve. Okay, and then let's figure out what we're gonna do for the bodice. Ooh, this might work. The bodice of this one might be perfect. This is technically like a bridal pattern. All right, let's start opening up my patterns and see what we have to work with. We are definitely gonna be doing some pattern hacking. So I know some people find it blasphemous to fully cut out their pattern pieces and just use tracing, but I've always been team cut out the pattern. I mean, you can't take it with you. Where do you guys land in that debate? Okay, so I've run into a bit of a conundrum with my pattern pieces because naturally that's what's going to happen when I thrift most of my patterns for 25 cents. With this bridal pattern, most of the skirt pieces are just missing. They're just not here. So what I do have from the skirt from that pattern is literally just the back. Skirt side and skirt front for both lengths are just missing. And I thought I had all of the bodice pieces. Nay, I do not. I have bodice front, bodice side front, bodice side back, but no bodice back. This is not the first time this has happened to me, that the back is just missing. Honestly, I don't know why people donate patterns that are missing so much. Why wouldn't you just throw it away? Because weirdos like me will still use it, that's why. So as far as the bodice goes, I think that missing piece is something I can still figure out and finagle by doing a mock-up first, which I was gonna do anyway. I'm gonna finagle something. And then for the skirt, because so much of it is missing, I did pull out another pattern that I have that has the same, you know, the point at the front. I almost forgot that I have this other pattern. It's so cute. The problem with this one, again, skirt panels are missing. For the longer skirt, I only have the front. So I guess between the two patterns, I have almost a whole skirt. I still don't have the side panel, but I think that's something I could figure out. Oh, and the bridal pattern that I showed you guys first had a random extra pattern piece. I looked up what the pattern was that this came from. It's a hideous pattern, so I have no reason to keep that. Let's start finagling stuff together and working up a mock-up. To modify the pattern, I shortened the bodice from a drop waist to a natural waist fit, then used this bodice back piece from another pattern to approximate my missing back piece and add straps. So the shortening adjustment that I made seems to be good. I like where that placement is here. Obviously this one I'm gonna need to crop a little bit. The armhole is a tad bit small. Again, I can just cut away a little bit of that fabric, and it seems like it overall fits okay throughout the front and the sides. The issue that I'm having is in the back. I either need to cut away more fabric or add darts. I might try adding darts, but otherwise I'm feeling confident that I can start cutting out my actual fabric for this. Maybe a little too confident. So I'm gonna play around with trimming a little bit more out of the armhole, and then I think when I cut it out of my actual fabric, I'm gonna add just a little bit more length on the straps, and then I'm gonna play around with adding darts on here to see if that fixes the issue of the excess fabric at the waist. Otherwise, this looks pretty good. Okay, also I have reached the point in the day when I can no longer keep my hair up. My scalp hurts and I start getting a headache after like more than 4 hours of having my hair up. Anyone else get that? Now I have to bring it into a low pony and proceed to look like a little colonial boy. Okay, let's do this. Adding darts on the back panel and opening up the armholes seemed to address most of the fit issues. I traced these modified pieces onto craft paper to save my new pattern for future use. After cutting out my skirt lining, I didn't have quite enough fabric for my innermost bodice lining, so I used this old bedsheet that's similar but a slightly darker beige. And this is why we always keep our old linens, kids. Happy first day of spring! It's freaking freezing outside. Okay, let's finish this bodice. It is deceptively sunny and gorgeous, but the air is so cold. I put together the bodice lining first to triple check that my adjustments would work, then attached the sheer pieces to their lining and assembled the bodice shell. You know, I always think the bodice of a dress is not going to be that complicated, and then 6 to 7 hours later, here we are. So I've been having some issues using this to figure out the fit just because I can't get the measurements quite to mimic mine. Adding a bra definitely helped. So this is probably as close as I'm gonna get it. So I am still having a bit of excess fabric at the back, both when I try it on this thing and on myself, which I can just cut away when I get around to the zipper, but that's always tricky, and I always have that problem. I'm always like, oh, I don't want to cut away too much fabric because then it won't fit, but then I always have excess fabric here. But I think it's looking pretty good so far. So the next step is to figure out what the heck I want to do for the sleeves. I still have no idea. So I made a really quick, rough mock-up of each sleeve type I might do. Obviously didn't finish the seams or anything, just kind of cut out the shapes and slapped them on there. So this here is obviously our full poof sleeve version that I would gather in a cuff. This is a quick kind of bell sleeve. I think I would try to make the bell a little bit bigger, and I think I like the bell sleeve better. The only thing that might be a concern is that I want it to end in the pretty scalloped edge, but I don't know if I have enough of the scalloped edge to make bell sleeves if I also want it to be the bottom of the skirt. So I'm going to cut out my skirt panels first and then see what I have to work with for the sleeves. In hindsight, I'm not sure why I tapered the skirt panels at the top. I think leaving them fuller would have been a nice effect. Note to self for next time. I used tearaway stabilizer when finishing the seams of the skirt shell and used a narrow overlock for a less conspicuous seam. It also helps that my overlocker thread happens to be a really close color match for the embroidery. I cut out the top half of my sleeves using a basic straight-fitting sleeve pattern, then made 2 trapezoids on the scalloped edge for the flare. Unfortunately, this was the last of my scalloped edge fabric because I stupidly made my ruffed draft sleeve with it as well, so I had to disassemble my draft sleeve and paired each of those smaller trapezoids with one of the larger pieces I had just cut. I again used tearaway stabilizer and a narrow overlock for these seams. While attaching the sleeves to the bodice, I again had to cut away fabric to open up the armhole further. Then it was on to the skirt. I basted the outer shell to the lining before gathering both layers to be attached to the bodice. My mistake here was continuing the gathering all the way to the center front of the skirt, which caused some awkward bunching at the center point. I should have left the very front of the skirt ungathered. The outer lining disguises this a bit, but again, note to self for next time. The last thing to do was add my zipper and close up the back. I usually prefer an invisible zip, but since this is a costume, I decided just to use a zipper I already had in my stash. And this is where my previous decision to not trim away the excess fabric at the back earlier came back to haunt me, as I now had to finagle my zipper placement around this. I very much was fighting my perfectionism at this point and had to keep reminding myself, it's okay if it doesn't look perfect, it's a costume, it's a costume, it's a costume. So several hours of stressing over a zipper later, I said, you know what? It's good enough. So this may just be the prettiest piece of garbage I have ever made. Y'all, this dress is an absolute mess. So this is the part where I'm gonna nerd out about sewing a little bit, so if you don't care about that, thanks for watching, subscribe, like, and all of that crap, and see ya. For those of you sticking around, I am very happy to see the vision realized, to finally have used these crappy curtains. But let's talk a little bit more in detail about what went well for each part and what very much did not. For one, as I mentioned from the start, this fabric is crap. It like rips if you look at it the wrong way. Just from trying it on before I even got into the woods, rips were forming here at the arm, and it looks like a velociraptor slashed my sleeve. There's like little rips and pulls and tears everywhere. And then the other part that's really crappy about this, I'm a little bit ashamed, is the zipper back here, and it's just bulky, awkward wonkiness. Just don't look at it. I kind of went about my installation of the zipper the way that you would an invisible zipper, and I think that's what led to my issues. I think with a regular zipper like this, you're supposed to do the seam first and then put the zipper in. I don't know. I think I am most proud of my self-drafting, or not really self-drafting, but like pattern hacking, finagling that I did with this bodice, with kind of schmoozing a pattern out of the existing one. I think overall the bodice looks pretty good. I definitely need to open up these armholes. The armholes are still a bit small, which I think is what led to the ripping here. Again, I had too much fabric at the back. Point being, this modified pattern that I did where I brought the waistline up and had to fill in my own back panel and added my own straps, I think it's pretty good for a first draft. I would like to try it with a fabric that is less crappy and has a little bit more give and doesn't rip at the first bit of tension. The sleeves are fine. They might be a little bit small here. Again, partly owing to the fact that the armholes are too small, because I'm not sure what else would cause such tightness here. I'm actually kind of bound in by this. I can't really like move my arms higher than this without just ripping the dress. I don't have full range of motion. So it's pretty but not functional. I don't feel tightness across the back when I do this. It's all right here. So I think I just made the armholes and the sleeves too small up here. And then the skirt. It's okay. I really wish that I had started these panels maybe at the seams here or just a little bit further out to the side, because then we would get more of that openness at the skirt and see the white all the way down the front. But having them meet in the center does hide a bit of the wonkiness here. I was kind of not rushing towards the end, but definitely getting to the point of like, it's gonna just be a costume because it's already ripping. Just finish it. Just finish it. Find a middle ground between what you would like it to be and what you can live with it being. So there is a lot wrong with this dress, and I'm not saying that to be mean to myself. I'm just being realistic about the way that this turned out. Part of that is just inexperience and working with new skills and new shapes and trying out things I haven't done before. And part of that is this horrendous fabric. It looks pretty in some of the photos I took. From afar, it kind of just looks like I have weird red polka dots on my dress. Like there's weird red spots on a white dress. It's a pretty dress. I had fun making it. I am glad to have the idea realized into reality. And I think this is a good first draft of other projects that I can make based off of this. So anyway, there's all my notes to myself on my sewing. If you stuck around for all that, thank you. I'm definitely coming down with something, so I'm gonna go put my jammies on and make a hot toddy. You know what? Hot toddies for everyone. Let's get around to hot toddies. I think we all could do with one right now. So if you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave a crown emoji, a tiara emoji down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me today. Subscribe if you want to hang out next week. I think I might be getting up to some closet reorganization. Okay, time to put comfy clothes on. Thanks guys, bye. So after a mere 40 minutes running around outside taking pictures, we've got a rip here, 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 and it's starting to come away from the seam here. And we've got all of the shredding here on the sleeve. I mean, what the heck?